Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's Neil and Kara. We're out here still working with the Mantis units. Today we're going to introduce you to the recoil meter, which is something that's been around a little bit for quite a while, but I didn't really understand it. So I'm guessing if I didn't, some others probably didn't. So today we're going to talk about it.
Download the ASP Unlimited app for all the content you love from active self-protection and more with no interference from YouTube. No ads, no age gates, exclusive videos, seminars, classes, and more on iOS, Android, Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire, and Android TV. Hit the link in the description or download ASP Unlimited from your app store today.
Kara, talk to us a little bit about this recoil meter. What's it telling? What's it doing? What's it figuring out?
So what recoil meter is doing, instead of it looking at what happens leading up and through the trigger press, it is going to start capturing data at the trigger press and see what happens post trigger press.
Okay.
We're actually just rolled out some new screens for recoil meter, hopefully to make it a little bit easier to read and understand. So we're going to show you those new screens today.
Perfect.
So this is a good drill maybe to use if you're comparing what gun you shoot better than another, or caliber comparisons.
Sure.
Lots of different things we can pull from it. Grip, grip, stance, things like that.
Okay, cool. Well, we're not going to belabor the point too much because I really want to shoot and then I want to look at the screens and talk through that. But essentially, it's not the just prior to the trigger press, and prior after. It's after the trigger press, what's going on with the gun is the gist of it. And then the screens are going to tell us some more. So, all right, well, then let's line up here and I'll shoot. How many should I shoot?
5.
5? Okay.
Okay, so I am going to turn us on. So we're going to go into the recoil meter app and we're going to look at our drill settings. We're just going to leave it no count. We're going to stop the drill manually.
Okay.
Okay. It's at your pace.
Okay.
Okay. So it recorded 5 shots.
Okay.
And we're going to go ahead and hit stop. So we're going to manually stop the drill. So you can either set shots or manually stop the drill.
All right, let's come over here though, so I can at least, you need to see this, right? So, no, okay, so you're going to see on the screen here, probably up here somewhere, but what are we looking at here?
So I'm going to go back to the very first tab. So there's 4 tabs on the screen now.
Okay.
The first tab is recovery time. So this tells us how quickly did the gun go up and come back? How quickly did you recover from the recoil itself?
Okay.
Okay. The next tab is muzzle rise. So that tells us when we shoot the gun, what was the peak rise of the muzzle of the gun?
Okay.
So that's that score. The next one is recoil width. Now, we recoil not in a straight line typically. We typically, when you recoil, you're recoiling at an angle, which is the last piece of data. But what happens is you usually end up drawing a circle.
Okay.
So whether you recoil to the right or you recoil to the left, this tells us the width of that recoil. And then the recoil angle actually tells you at what angle you recoil.
Okay.
So that's kind of the 4 tabs.
Okay.
Okay. So the beauty of this though is you can actually look at the data and see what you're seeing. So your average muzzle rise is a little skewed. There's a little issues with shot 4 and 5.
Yeah,
we'll get back on that.
I don't know if you noticed, but I went kind of quick, kind of slow, and then really quick at the end just to see what we'd see.
So, but your average overall taking in those 0 muzzle rises was 8.88. Okay.
Is that degrees? That
is degrees. So that is a degree from 0.
Okay.
What's my rise? So this would be a 90-degree rise. So you were at 8 degrees.
Okay. Perfect.
So an 8 degrees rise. Recoil width. So again, this is listed in degrees as well. So what is that? What is that width? So if it's positive, so if you have a y-axis, it's positive if it's to the right. It's going to be negative if you tend to recoil to the left. So 0 would be the perfect straight up and down recoil.
Okay.
So it's just a deviation either right if it's positive or left if it's negative. The final data is the recoil, that is the recoil angle, right and left.
Right.
The recoil width is the width of the circle that you draw. So the best way to show you recoil width is to pick a shot and look at the trace of it. So again, our trace is going to show us what happened.
Okay.
So let's just pick the first shot. You had a large amount of width there. So I can actually scroll in a little bit, and if we notice, we're seeing the red of the shot. So you got our X and Y axis, and the peak width from the 0 axis was to the right. So not only was your recoil angle to the right, but your width of that angle, the angle that you drew with that, was on this shot, well, that's your average. Let's see here. No, that shot was 4.23. So when you
4
tap
degrees
on it,
over.
4 degrees over.
So I'm going to exaggerate here, but I'm coming up like this.
Exactly, exactly.
To 4 degrees is not, I don't think, horrible.
No, I don't think that's horrible at all. Again, you're talking 4 degrees from center. So, and I don't know personally if you want to be perfect. I don't think anybody will be perfect.
Well, so I think, we spent a lot of time talking about this morning just so I could get a better understanding of this. I think, ultimately we see numbers on the screen and we want to get to 100% or we want to get to 0 or whatever the goal is here. But I think at this point, our goal is consistency and then cleaning it up a little bit over time. So if my recoil width was a 10, I would want to try to clean that up a little bit because I'm going to be able to get back to, because that's going to help with my recovery time. It's going to help with other stuff. So now I figure out what my low hanging fruit in recoil is potentially, maybe it's my left hand grip isn't enough if I'm
or it's
at
too
10,
much,
or it's too much with the other one and I'm at a negative 10. So I think the data here, doesn't necessarily, it's not like the benchmark in that we're looking for 100. It's not that.
No.
We're looking for consistency, and then what can we do to improve that, and what hints do we have? And so, like I said, there's the positive and the negative. Aside of that, there's the right here I'm at a 4.23. If I was at a negative 4.23, I would be doing this. So now it's probably one hand or the other. So I get some hints and I get some ideas so I can make a plan going forward for improvement. And I'm not looking for perfect zeros across the board. I mean, if I have them, that's going to be pretty amazing.
Yeah, I just don't think anybody's going to do a perfect recoil angle of 0.
Yeah.
I mean, that's straight up and down. I think another thing you can look at with recoil angle is if you struggle to read your sights, this will tell you where should your dot come back in or where would your front sight come back into view. So in this example, it would be between 12 and 1 o'clock.
Okay.
So that's something you can read from it to maybe help you start reading your sights to know where do you typically go.
Well, and I think reading sights is hard if you haven't done it before, and this tells you what your sights are doing, so now you can watch for that. If you can get this consistent, and I know that the Mantis tells me I'm doing this, now I'm going to watch for that. Oh yeah, I am doing that. Now I can start correcting. And at some point the goal is, you're not going to have your Mantis on you when you're in your gunfight or when you're at your competition or wherever. But the goal with the Mantis is to be better when you're at the competition, or if you're, God forbid, you're in a gunfight, you want to be the best you can be that day. And so now with this information and this data, we can become better shooters. One thing I'd like to look at, there was one of them that the one that I took the longest time in between. I think that was like shot 4 or 3.
Shot 3.
Yeah. So how do I look at that?
You just tap it.
Okay.
So right now it's showing you recovery time. So it's that tab is highlighted in red.
Does this show me if I hit play, am I going to see everything?
You're going to see the actual recoil. So that is what happened with the gun. So you go up and we all generally go below the x-axis.
Yep. And so what I wanted to note here was I noted that one as I went slow kind of on purpose, and I felt myself come down below and come back up and then come back, and I overcorrected when I came up. So if you watch this, I go up, down below, up, and then down a little bit more to correct because I was coming back down because I was shooting at the line there. So so it's interesting that what I saw in my sights, because I do this a fair amount, so I know what I'm looking for in the sights, but not everybody does. And so, I'm not going to sit here and say the Mantis is flat out for everybody, but just about everybody can get something out of the Mantis. I think it's a wildly misunderstood tool, especially this recoil meter, because I just haven't spent enough time with it because the data is there, but I don't know how to interpret it. So I just kind of stayed away from it.
I think another good use of recoil meter, it just kind of hit me, was if you use the Mantis in live fire and your shots are high scoring shots, but if you're shooting fast and let's say your shots tend to creep left or creep right as you shoot, maybe try recoil meter, because if you're recoiling severely to the right with your recoil angle, that might be that you're steady on the trigger, but you're not truly getting back on the target and you're further right.
Right.
So it might be a combination of things that you use multiple drills to kind of figure out what you're doing.
I think that's the big thing. You're going to get some hard data with some hints of things to work on.
Yes.
You know, and it's not like the old, you know, that old bullseye target that if you shot down here, you squeeze the trigger, and if you shot up there, you healed it. To some degree, some of that is possibly true, but it's wildly unreliable. And so here, when you can see what's going on, now you can make your own hypothesis of what you're doing, and you can test that, and now you have data and you have a screen record of what's going on. So over time, you can improve, and that's the whole point of all this.
I think the key words is be curious.
Yeah,
that's really the key words is look at your data and be curious and start asking questions.
Yeah, so, well, we're going to do another video here where we're going to compare a few different guns. We've got some of the CC9s, and you've got a couple of different guns. We've got some 380s, and we're just going to kind of see what the difference is with recoil meters, so we can, you know, so we can start saying, okay, so with a little snappier gun, it's going to look like this. With a bigger gun, it's going to look like that. You know, whatever, and we're going to see what the data plays out and tells us, and I think that's going to be fun. So that's the next one coming. We'll see you at that one. Thank you.
Thanks.